Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining Chuck and me. So this panel was originally going to be an esteemed crew of four. Sadly, two of our panelists are ill today. Further sadness, the two panelists happen to be our deepest UX subject matter experts. Luckily, Chuck and I have a bit of a gift for the gab, and have hopefully enough pearls of wisdom, thoughts, ideas to sort of make this worth your while. Certainly, it's going to be worth our while because I like talking to Chuck. But more importantly, with the two of us, it's be more of a fireside chat, and really would encourage if folks have questions, raise your hand, shout out, throw chairs, whatever you need. But this will be pretty casual, and looking forward to talking about UX standards, interoperability, and how it all comes together. So with that, Chuck, why don't you talk a little about who you are, what is Adaptive?
Sure.
A little bit about your thoughts on user experience.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the introduction. So my name is Chuck Danielsson. I work for a company called Adaptive. We've got a booth out there, a bit on the left side. You'll see a screen with some nice numbers flowing on a FX trader and some lovely documentation around a back-end open source product called Aaron. So we're consultants. We work the full stack, front to back. I like to say user experience starts on the back end. If the system ain't fast, they're going to be a little upset. We are big contributors, consumers of open source. So in the context of today's event, that does mean Aaron, which is a high-performant messaging protocol that you use on back end. Specifically, we use a lot in the cloud to help firms take workflows from on-prem to the cloud. That's the back end. On the front end, we are big contributors, consumers, and educators in the world of FDC3. So myself, several other colleagues at Adaptive have worked on some of the training material for that stuff. Done a lot of what we call desktop strategy, where we help firms take either a collection of legacy applications, thick clients, right, and bring that to a new vision, a new world of thin client applications that maybe still talk to that old one because it ain't going anywhere, or maybe we're totally rewriting them. Every little division you can take upon there. And I myself focus much more on the development side. I will do my best Courtney Stauffer impression. I have the absolute pleasure of working with Courtney every day. I hope she gets to watch this recording because she's awesome. So, yeah.
Nice. And I'm Mike Lynch. I'm the Chief Product Officer of Symphony. So I look after product management and design and user research at Symphony. For those of you not familiar, Symphony was founded in 2014 as a end-to-end encrypted secure messaging platform for primarily focused on inter-firm communication with the broader financial universe. We actually, the Finos used to be called the Symphony Open Source Foundation. We were founded at the same time. So we've known Gab and that crew since the beginning. I myself joined Symphony back in 2021 and really as part of a focus to go much deeper in terms of financial markets workflows. So since that time, we've actually acquired 3 companies. Cloud9, a modern approach to trader voice. We've acquired a company called StreetLinks, which is a secure directory exchange product for buy-side and sell-side firms to exchange information about research analysts, portfolio managers, and then have a 2-key permissioning model around that. And then most recently in the last year, actually November 29th, we acquired Amenity Analytics, an AI NLP company. I know the date because November 30th was when ChatGPT got announced. So really, our focus from a UX point of view, we started as a messaging platform, and messaging in of itself is an enterprise, capability. The UX patterns, the UX standards are fairly well defined. The market is consistent. Where our secret sauce is how we then sort of tailor those enterprise messaging experiences for the financial community. But then what's really been exciting for us over the last 2 years is how do we leverage, open source protocols such as FDC3, most notably for us. But then how do we connect voice? How do we connect data? How do we connect directory data into these workflows and create something that is really powerful that enables two firms to be able to communicate and exchange information, exchange intelligence in sometimes real time and sometimes what I call hyper real time as we think about how markets are moving. So it's been a really exciting and interesting user experience challenge for us as we've gone deeper into personas and things like that. So I guess we'll start with, Chuck, how do you at Adaptive preach sort of a UX culture and a user experience first approach to doing business?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. UX, it's funny because like everything in tech, it's just a little acronym, 2 letters. And it really is so much more. I do like when we get to have the conversation like what's UI versus UX and all these things. Because to me, UX is the product. That is all of it, right? It's my experience using something. And as much as we want to say that maybe it's about a specific screen or a specific feature and we really focus on one little small part, it's about when I have the app in my hand, right? I'm in the phone or at my keyboard, right? It's about how I use it, how I experience the application. So much of what I was talking we get to do with these desktop strategy engagements is take these user experiences, which, there's that one image we've all seen of like, I designed my path, around the college and it's like a little stone path and they walk around the grass, right? That's the new product now, right? Now we see how people actually want to use something. Even, coming down to, like I was saying, or a trading platform, if you will, right? There is how I'm going to actually execute it. Now, there's a technical know-how to it, right? It's, especially in a highly regulated environment, the idea that you can just do something. So there's mixing it all together. But in my experience, all of that work always starts with outlining the workflows, right? And combining all those workflows together encapsulates the overarching user experience for the different users, right, that you may have using your product. But it's, it really helps define the product scope and really what is it supposed to do, right? I'm sure in the context of Symphony, right, you have a chat app and that's it, but that's not the product, right? It's everything on top of it. Right?
Yeah, no, I think it's, it's an overused kind of statement, but I think it's always important to reiterate that UX is far more than UI. And a lot of people sort of boil down as, moving things around. But think about what the word user experience means. And a lot of what we do at Symphony, because of the nature of our products, is you have the software, you have just generally how a user experience is on a monitor. But for us in the business we're in, we think about the full user desktop. We think about what is the keyboard the person has, what kind of phone does that person have. And especially in sort of institutional financial services, we've done a lot of work around personas because it's so important to understand how a trader on a fixed income desk has 8 monitors, and has an entirely different setup than a middle office or trade settlement user who has 2 it's just fundamentally different. And a lot of our products, all of our products, and probably a lot of people in this room, have to work equally well for those different users, but who inherently have very different needs, very different skill sets, very different attention levels. And I think, trying to be able to pinpoint those needs and try to thread that needle of the broader experience while creating really tailored custom, workflows that really make them help them solve their jobs. 'Cause in the end, we're just here to help them get their jobs done faster, better, easier, right? So how do we, thread that needle is, something that we grapple with all day, every day.
Yeah, I like that you brought it to phone. Yeah. Even myself, like when I tried to give you guys an example, you saw me do the look at me, I got an iPhone in my hand thing. Because again, that's the reality of it, right? Yeah. There is the UI and how things look, but then it's how does it operate, and even to say how does it feel, right? Like what does an exception in this environment feel like? What happens when something goes wrong? All of that is about building trust with the user, which is trust in your product. And like you said, it's about helping people get their job done, right? Yeah. So if I don't trust that when I click the button, the thing's going to happen, I'm not going to click the button. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So how do you think interoperability, we are talking about FDC3 here, how do you think interoperability helps users get their jobs done?
Context, I think, is very big, right? Let's tie it into that trader persona there and many trader personas, if you will, right? Some of which is happening on phone, some of which is happening in a research platform, some of which is happening on an internal chat thing, right? All those ways, by the way, are boundaries. There are certain things I could say on the phone, I can't. There's certain things I could key in this that I can't. Certain chats you and I will have that I won't have elsewhere. All those boundaries. And being able to contextualize those and bridge those things together in a coherent way, that takes these workflows from this disjointed kind of flow into something that can bind together. On the technical side, what I see is de-risking of building and deploying something new, something that you're putting at the hands of the user, by being able to decompose and isolate the principles and roles, responsibilities of a specific application. That allows us to say, let's make a best of breed research application. All it's going to do is process this and allow me to find the best reports I have here, right? Now, I'm not building the world's greatest search UI because contextually I'm passing in the information I need. Well, I'm going to focus on those different pieces, I think is a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's super interesting. I think for me, one of the things that we think about, especially in terms of our messaging product, and I can talk about voice sort of separately, is how do we make the communication channel not simply the record that something happened, i.e., hey, and I literally just did an hour ago. I had a meeting. I sent an email to follow up. That's not an action. That's a recording of a prior action, right? How do you actually make the messaging flow the action in and of itself, so that as you're having that conversation, you can trigger an action from that, and it happens. So this is something that we've been working on a lot with using FDC3 to trigger intents from the context of a conversation. But then we also have a product that we call our embedded collaboration platform, where we've been able to take the Symphony messaging app and actually put it inside a web UI. So an operations user could be having a conversation with their counterparty around a trade settle. Oh, the commission's off. Literally click a button in that chat in the context of that conversation, and the chat actually speaks to the application around it to update the data in the trade settlement platform and feed that downstream. So now the conversation is the action versus just the record of the action. And that's where I see, and we're leveraging FDC3, to be able to create that interoperability so you're not recording, duplicating, or having to switch contexts throughout. We call that kind of the chair swivel effect for our users.
And having to key from thing to thing, right, and all that stuff.
Exactly, all it does is create errors, right?
Yeah, and FTC3-wise, what I love about that as well is like from the chat, it's not just about updating what's there already, but you can also discover new, right? Launch more applications. In a case of like a support or something through a chat, it's like, hey, you can get this from here. You can get this data if you click this thing, and suddenly it's now at my fingertips.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let's go panel clickbait, AI. Yes, got it. Where do you think about the intersection of AI and user experience?
I've said this before, so it's not just pure clickbait, but I do think that the biggest change we've seen in AI over the past year and a half has been user experience. And that's just to say, it's been very good at a lot of things for a long time. The principles behind it all go back like 40, 50 years, right? When first neural nets and single, second layer and all that stuff. And then it must have been November 30th. For some reason, someone reminded me of the day. A little chat app came our way. And what I really, for me personally, and we all have our own experience with the tool, right? But for me, it was a new user experience for the web and the old web, the document-based web. Because somebody took all the text on it, put it in a big, beautiful data set, and trained models against it. And now I can talk to it, and I can fetch data. And that idea, that experience that I could go back to my machine, I could put some words in and get an answer without scrolling through 800 ads or like reading first 2/3 of your blog post so I can get to the 9 lines of code at the bottom. Like it stripped it all down. It put information back at our fingertips. And it's really, I mean, look, we say those 2 letters, I think, because of that experience, because of that UX around it. I also think that's where we want to be applying it in the near to medium long-term future. I mean, not long in the world of AI is what, like 6 months, right? So long-term, right? That's to say, I think that tool provides a lot of value. That idea that I can interact with text, provide context around it. And just like you're saying before, there was human intervention in the idea that I'm saying something, this can happen. This is something along there, sniffing as I go through, able to provide insights, able to update the machine around me. Hey, the fuzz right now is on how automated can I be, but supplementing experiences, I think we just have so many doors to unlock in that space in general.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. I think what's most interesting, I guess what I think is most successful with what we're seeing, this sort of this latest age of AI, because it's not the age of AI. We've had multiple before, and is the incredible success we're seeing at turning the complex into the simple, the expensive into the seemingly cheap. Right? If any of you have gotten the bills for the GPUs, you know it's not cheap, and you know it's not simple. But in fact, from an end user point of view, it's made it so simple. Now, I think for us, one of our areas is we've gotten to simple, I think how do we get to simple and actionable, right? How do you go from, okay, I got the answer, but now how do I get the best possible answer for the context that we need in order to create, to turn that into a business decision, a trade, whatever it might be in our market. And I think we're not there yet. I think there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of, I could count, probably everyone in this room is working on a POC, or hopefully some of you even have something in production, but there are millions of POCs out there. I think our market specifically, because of our framework around risk, our framework around compliance, our framework around security, we're now in that phase of POC to production. And I think to me, that's the next 6 months is going to be that phase of, turning these into really sort of exciting, scalable solutions that permeate sort of the financial market.
Yeah, I feel that buzz up here, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, we can do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. You might be sitting next to a guy who just threw ChatGPT in Teams to say he could do it.
Yeah.
And eventually, right, we get to a point when it's, all right, no one's going to use that, right? What's the real version of this look like? How do I embed it in my workflow? So I think just to tie on some actual user experience examples, like you'll notice your Google Gmail does a little better job completing now than it used to. That type of stuff, I think we get used to it.
Yeah.
Right? I think VS Code does it. I don't know if anyone has noticed as well, but it's fixing my spelling more. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not that fast. but that's nice, and that's what it can do.
Yeah.
When we get to that idea of like fully automating things, it's a lot of regulation. That's a lot.
Yeah, no, and I think we're, in our world, whether we'll fully automate some things, but there's gonna be a lot that it's gonna create, and I think, for us, like, the excitement is what new jobs get created in the next 1 to 3 years that we never even imagined we would need, that will now kind of have, new roles, new skills that the world will have to learn to be able to change the way jobs are done.
Yeah, the way you're going to interact with knowledge bases is different now. And that's very exciting, right? Suddenly you can get so much farther, so faster. You can make yourself comfortable with a topic like that quickly. And I love the idea of talking about the new jobs that come around. To me, I was a little afraid of all this stuff just because it's moving so fast. It's so exciting. We were at a panel at FinJS when someone called it like the printing press, as if to say like this is innovation. This is things that are different, right? And I'm sure all of us, if we went back 50 years ago and said what our job titles were, people would be like, well, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean? Like, and the world changes.
My father has no idea what I do, so that's fun.
We just say this in my family, right?
Yeah, no, I think one of the interesting, kind of pulling back to sort of even the job of the UX designer, I think what's interesting is the expectations around AI are limitless, but the reality of what various implementations of that are actually, in some ways, hyper-focused. And a lot of it's, how do you guardrail? How do you manage the user experience to be able to say, oh, I know I can't help you with that, or I know I can't do that for you, but I'm really good at this. And how do you direct the user experience flow to the things that, whatever your AI is, whether it's a chatbot, whether it's experience, whether it's a data flow, how do you ensure that you're having the user get to the best possible experience, the best possible answer of that product versus, going off and getting hit with, error messages every other second.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I've seen too many POC demos where I try to be like, what if I do this? It's like, oh no, don't look over there. Don't look over there.
You saw my demo.
But so I think it's a super interesting problem. I think it's gonna be interesting as we see how the designer skill set, the designer job description changes as it has as we kind of have to embrace it and it becomes part of our everyday.
Yeah, a lot of the work I do with Courtney on UX, especially around FDC, is I call myself, not so much with 2.0, but I call myself the no man often, as if to say, no, technically that's not as sound. But after a while, now Courtney just knows it, right? So it's like, okay, no, this is the boundaries, this is how these things talk together.
Yeah.
Similar with AI, right? Like it's the idea of, I like that you said, like the bar is up here in our head, right? Like we can just do anything. Everything's gonna boom, 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 boom. And the more humbling moment for that, if you use a lot of these products, is the current user experience is still a very eager, happy assistant, right? What's this? I know the answer. That's dangerous when you don't know the answer, right? Like, and finding the right boundary there, finding the right way to support. Like, I think of something along the lines of, in the context of your system, right? I have a trade desk and there's 8 or 9 separate conversations happening. What a beautiful role for like a supervisor is to say, you guys think totally opposite things about a certain instrument. That's what I want my desk talking about. I want these people that never chat to be like, nah, this is going here in 3 months, I'll bet my life. This is going 3 months this way, 3 months. Fantastic. Because we're going to get to the bottom of it now. That type of supervisor, that type of bringing that information to your attention, like a friendly assistant. But again, not that, I know the answer. You copy paste the code into the thing and
No, I get to a real life example. I was recently with one of our Cloud9 customers, which is our trader voice platform, and he's the desk head, and this is a broker, and they have thousands of hours of voice data per day, the way that they do their business. And it's his job when there's a dispute between either a customer and his desk or 2 members of his desk, like, oh, I did that trade first, or I did that trade desk first. He's got to go find the call in and say, oh, this is the call. Oh, you said buy half a second before they said buy. Therefore, like literally, he was like, this is my job. And so one of our initiatives is around voice analytics and how can we help you. Trader voice is one of the most complicated, lingo-heavy, hard to describe kind of data sets in the world. And we're really focused on how do we help him, just to start with, find the right call to listen to, right? Maybe we can't tell you everything that's going on in that call to start, but hey, you're probably looking for that call because within that last hour, that his desk and that particular counterparty has had 100 calls. So help you narrow that down. Help him go from a 20-minute process to a 30-second process. And that's, in our market, that's real money. So, how do we start to make these incremental steps towards sort of providing transparency into these very problematic user experiences across the market?
Yeah, and I love the idea of taking things that used to take forever and making the machine make it faster, right? That's what they're for. Like things that there was no way around this. We had to do all this and yada yada. No, now we can ask it and it understands.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Any questions for us from anybody in the audience?
I definitely gave someone $5 to ask a question. Where are they?
There we go.
What you were saying, Michael, at the beginning about that mindset of actually both really the UI is a tiny part of UX. How have you grown that mindset among all of your stakeholders and partners, from executives to developers? I'd say that is probably the biggest challenge that I face is getting everyone to understand, hey, it's a lot more than just get a form for this or something like that. Thinking that way.
I'll start. The first thing that we did to help with that is we defined a set of personas for our organization. So we have 12 personas that we defined, and we have a user researcher who did a meticulous amount of research about how that persona operates. What is their a day in the life? What are their motivations? What type of characteristics does this person have? We even have sort of sample screenshots of what does their desk at home look like versus their desk in the office look like. And you just start to, and it's really cool. We're thinking about how do we open source, because it's incredible what we actually have internally, because it really, to your point, it says, okay, this person is far more from how they interact with that widget on that screen. They have a whole set of biases, thoughts, needs, personality traits that come into how they make that decision. And if you're not thinking about all of that when you design your product, you're gonna miss. And actually, kind of a very real example, again, from that same, just because I had that client meeting 2 weeks ago. One thing that's been really eye-opening for me, and sort of really the first time in my career, is with our voice product, we have hardware. So it's a software-based trader voice product, but we have basically a trader assist that's a USB device that plugs into the PC that looks like a classic turret, but it's nicer, it's more modern, all that good stuff. But what was interesting is I noticed that a user had our device, but had plugged in external speakers on top of the external speakers and put them further apart. And it's like, talk to me about why you've done that. And for him, he needed to be able to really distinguish the left audio from the right audio because he had different customers coming in through different speakers. And it was just this, to speak to like, okay, now we have a hardware experience, a software experience, and then also, for him, it's also, oh, the guy that sits on my right is really loud, and the guy that sits on my left isn't, so I need this one a little closer to me. And like, all these sort of, like, especially on a trading desk environment, it is, you know, a little of the Wild West, and you need to be able to give those users that level of customization, and that to me is what user experience is all about.
Yeah. And honestly, thinking about it, I have an easy answer. I can't not. which sounds a little crazy, but again, if the product, what I described the product to be is the user experience, like, that's how I can suss out requirements, right? Let's just pretend I'm in charge of building the software for this lovely turret, and I don't know anything about how they actually use it, so I'm just gonna slap all the audio together, release it mono, so I actually can't go stereo tracks, and what do you know? No one's gonna use my software because I didn't actually look.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah. And I think, too, as well, on an engagement, we're like a delivery firm, so we build, and it's yours then, right? It allows me to help all the voices be heard, right? All the different personas around it. So you have the people that are using something day to day, but I've got to account for the person that's just checking it once a week to export the reports, or someone who's just a read-only user logging in to see what happens. And it helps actually define the whole workflow. We call it workflow-driven design, which is just more words for UX sometimes. I like to say. But yeah, great question.
Yeah, very good question. Yeah, Fergus.
Disclaimer, I work with Chuck, but I'm interested about your views on this. We're here at FF, FDC3 has continued to grow. I see examples, and there were some that came up today, where FDC3 is being used still in its most simplest way, passing context from one application to another. Yes, under the hood it's different technology stacks maybe, so yeah, that's good. What is your guys' view on unlocking much more from a user experience perspective from FDC3? Where does it need to go, and how does it elevate what we're trying to do to migrate solutions?
Great question. You want to go first?
Yeah, so part of the exercise we did for the panel was trying to wrap our head around like just that, like a tangible workflow in the context of FDC3 user experience. Meaning, like, I have some sort of enhanced workflow at my disposal, let's say, right? I want my app, I see that first version of FDC3 with context, data, intents, passing things around. I've linked them up, they're sharing them. I always saw the next horizon, in the context of 2.0, that's the get API that I can retrieve and pull data out. But other than that, intents and the application directory. I think those are the two big ones. And the vision I always want to make real around that application directory is that app discoverability. So trader comes in or a user comes in and they can do 1, 2, 3 things. It's Thursday, you can do 4 now, right? How do I get them to do something else? How do I embrace all that? So what we did was we looked back at the web for patterns that embraced this already. So if you, and this is tying, I think, into the world of accessibility a little bit, but for example, let's just say we are reporting data, right? So in my first version of a web app, I've got 15 hyperlinks that take me to another page that just show me that data as well. Now, at the user's disposal is a PDF version, maybe an audio version, some other options. Bundling that into your existing page and making it static, that's one thing, but what FDC3 allows us to do is make that dynamic, right? So in that case, first off, the app directory accounts for things like user preference. So if I have a chat app like Symphony I want to use over something else, I can have all my chat apps go out to there. But the app directory is serving up the available intents that can consume that context data. So think of that same list, that same report. That report's about something. It's contextual. What can I do with it? I can view analysis for it. That's clicking my first link, right? Maybe I can view trades for it. That's going to take me out to my blotter. I think bringing that experience and pulling into the other areas of the API is where we'll see more growth in the world of FDC3.
Yeah, no, I think we're at time. Is that the more it can solve very, it's obviously by purpose and what's great about it is so general and generic, but the more it can be applied to very real use cases that can then be repeatable and scalable, that's where we'll start to see that flywheel grow as we see kind of, those kinds of use cases spread across organizations, within organizations, and then across organizations. So, yeah.
I have a follow-up question. So FDC3 for, say, discovering apps and broadcasting via Symphony, the example that you gave in the paper. Feels like AI and FDC can be interchangeably used for such things. So I know you asked the question at the beginning about how AI fits into FDC3, but if you just can explain in simple words, how would you differentiate an FDC3 use case in the same scenario than an AI use case?
That's a good question. I think you have a. No, okay, first. I think it has to do with, we use the term intents, right? That's sort of FDC3 is all built around context and intents. I think for me, it's where AI is going to and FDC3 are going to come together is how powerful those intents are and how deep into that next application you can go to pull out the information and intelligence you need. So right now, there's still things that are fairly surface. Oh, pull up this intent and pull up the screen. Great, and incredibly valuable, because if you're rekeying, that's a problem. But if I could not only go open this up, but open this up, ask this question, get this answer, and do something with it, that's where AI starts to really power some of these FDC3 capabilities.
I think that together, I love the idea of it together, right?
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things about FDC3, it is a client-side API, right? Inherently secure in that, right? And the idea that the data I'm passing around. So what are we afraid of with AI? Giving it too much? Kind of nice, right? I don't give it as much here. You can build out the workflows, and then, again, logging, keeping all that information together, understanding that in the aggregate as well, the idea that trader A raised this intent to do these things and putting that data together, training on top of that as well, I think bringing it all together.
Great. Keep going. I guess we're,
So I think one of the underused aspects of FDC3 is app directory. And the application service discovery part of it. It's just the ability to my app can handle this 2 minutes. And I can just publish it, and then someone can say which are the apps this can handle this 2 minutes. Some sort of. So how are you leveraging that in any form, or what are your suggestions to kind of making it more marketable?
So certainly leveraging it, it's something we've done is help build those internal app directories, micro application directories, whatever you want to call it, using it to leverage intents. I think growth in that comes at the hands of an organization like Finos. So Finos now has their own open app directory. We participated in their hackathon, and I was excited because it was a demo, and I'm so used to just doing context data back and forth. Rico, ex-team name you may know, he's like, no one ever does intents. And I was like, we could do intents because we had the open source directory. One thing I know on that roadmap at some point was federation of those directories as well. So I think that universe where they can all be accessible. I'm still always rooting for the little guy. I love the idea of someone writing their FDC3 app, putting in an open source directory somewhere, and some kid in high school somewhere writing something really cool that they see on a desktop somewhere else. So I'm always rooting for that. But I will say that's come a long way. That idea that anyone would even be pushing something out to a public directory was a little while ago, and now it's
I think that's fundamentally what's changing, right? This openness to the idea of even having an app. I don't know how the app directory is how old is it?
a couple of years,
Exactly. So we're just seeing such rapid growth and such acceptance of this sort of approach to technology, especially at our financial customers, that I see it kind of growing in the next
We're on that curve. We're like that tipping point, like right around there, maybe. So I think we're getting there.
Yeah. Cool. Any questions? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
You did it all.